community at large with life-preserving knowledge within her sphere of influence. She is motivated by her faith and passionate about finding life-preserving, innovating healthcare solutions and sharing them with individuals, families, communities, and the nations. She is a fellow of the College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of South Africa, a founding fellow of the EXAPOC, a member of the Zimbabwe Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and she has previously served as the Society's Secretary General. Dr. Davidzoyashe is a consultant with Ori Hill Health and has previously served in various capacities in the public, private, and non-profit sectors as a clinician and a consultant, contributing to development of national strategies, guidelines, and curricula. She is a certified lifestyle medicine physician with the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine and a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. She is a wife, a mother, and an author on a learning journey to promote healthy lifestyles within her spheres of influence, beginning with her family and colleagues. I remember I met her when I was still an intern, and she was one of my role models back then. So help me to welcome Dr. Davidzoyashe Makosa as she gives us a talk on Charity Begins at Home. How well do we live?
Thank you, Dr. Makosa. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'll just start with a story about Charity Begins at Home. So when I had my last baby, who is 2 years old, I went into theater. And the anesthetist came and said, "I remember you, Doc. You nearly gave me a repeat." Because I was petrified. And then she said, "But then you had that I had a newborn baby. And then you said to me, why didn't you tell me? For that reason, I will not ask you to repeat." So you just reminded me. I hope I was nice to you, Nangisa. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience, the X's, my experience, why I'm talking about this, the expense of it, the expertise. I'll mention the exam, exchange, and the extras, i.e. what Dr. Abi was talking about here. So let me start with my experience. After I had my baby, I'm going to be very vulnerable because we're talking about our wellness, so I'm going to be quite vulnerable here. But I remember that I had gained quite a bit of weight, quite a lot of weight actually. And I had severe preeclampsia in pregnancy. I actually didn't know, I have 2 gynaes, one in each city. So my Blueo gynae wrote to my Harare gynae that I am referring back this patient to you with severe preeclampsia, including hyperreflexia. I didn't see the hyperreflexia, and I guess he didn't want to tell me that I had been that sick. So when my BP remained high, I just thought, well, it's going to settle because I had preeclampsia. I'd never had preeclampsia before. My BP had been fine before that. I'm not sure what's happening here. You can help me. However, my BP, a year later, my BPs were still high, in the 170s or something. At which point I had to go and see a physician who happened to be my classmate. I knew I was in trouble, hence the Riot Act, when he moved from across the table and said, let's talk one-on-one on the same side. And he said, tell me about your life. How is your day? What do you eat? What do you do? And basically he was telling me to reflect on my lifestyle. And I did reflect and realize that in 2020, when I left work, as in 8 to 5 work, it's when I became sedentary. So I was mainly at home. I wasn't really doing a lot of activity. I was basically driving and picking up my kids. And that was the time for COVID. So that was when things went haywire for me. And the reality state of just how now my BP was so high and my weight and my BMI, and I was thinking, what about this 2-year-old? So he said, if we continue at this rate, I'm going to have to do something else. So you go away for 3 months. These are the principles. I want to see you back in 3 months, and I want to see a difference. And so I'm grateful for those kind of candid relationships. At that time, he's my classmate, but he was my physician, and he was very strict with me. And so I had to take responsibility of what I did. And so it's part of why I'm talking about this. So we know that the non-communicable disease burden is rising. The cost of medication, I think we know a lot of people, some would get calls about our relatives, our parents, and we now have to be buying all those medications that perhaps used to be provided for free by government. And we know the cost of life in during COVID-19, we know that those that had comorbidities were at higher risk of death than those that did not. And of course, I'm going to share, or rather I'll share now, that there's research that shows that health worker being is critical. We're seeing in other countries there's massive exodus, health workers just living burnout and the like, they're just failing to cope. But one thing that has been shown is that health worker behavior, actually, if I drink heavily, I smoke, I am unlikely to talk to my patients about smoking cessation. If I don't exercise, I am unlikely to talk to my patients about exercising. If I don't eat well, I'm unlikely to talk to my patients about exercising. So our health is a critical component of the economy of a nation. And we know that we cannot afford to have one less gynae, or one less midwife, or one less. So I'm an advocate for maternal newborn health, but today I am advocating for the carers themselves, because if we lose one, it means there's a whole group of thousands of people that are not going to be looked after well because one of us is not well, or if we're incapacitated. So silence is not an option. So let me talk a little bit about the expertise, and Nagi, do let me know as my time is going. So lifestyle medicine is a rapidly growing medical specialty. So you had that. So part of my responsibility was actually to study. One of my friends was like, do you know that this is now a specialty? Do you want to understand? Because I'm not the kind of person that's just going to go on a fad diet and do it. I need to understand. And that's how I started the journey of studying lifestyle medicine. So it's a rapidly growing medical specialty, and it focuses on the role of lifestyle factors in preventing, managing, and reversing of chronic disease. And the sad bit is that because there's a lot about this on social media and in the lay press, we've got a whole lot happening in the wellness industry. And some of it is not correct, it's inaccurate. There are a lot of people that are coming on board with different things. And so people then begin to confuse lifestyle medicine with other types of medicine, which it is not, or other types of wellness fads and stories, which it is not. So lifestyle medicine uses therapeutic lifestyle interventions as the primary modality to treat chronic conditions, including but not limited to cardiovascular disease, type 2, and obesity. And lifestyle medicine certified clinicians are trained to apply evidence-based, whole person prescriptive lifestyle changes to treat, and when used intensively, often can actually reverse conditions. And there are 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. You will see them, and it is distinctly different from things like integrative medicine or functional medicine and the like. And I've already mentioned that sometimes there can be confusion because there's a whole lot going on in the wellness industry. But we need to take responsibility. This is when I began to realize the importance of behavioral science, which we did. It traumatized me because the lecturer lost my marks, and I think I had done really well. And she lost my marks and she said, I'm just going to give you 50%. And so I think I never really paid attention to it. But with lifestyle medicine, this becomes important. Biochemistry, which we do in part 1, becomes important because then we begin to understand biochemistry, physiology, how, how our food is digested, insulin and the like. And so the pillars include nutrition, physical activity, social connectedness, avoidance of risky substances, stress management, restorative sleep, and there's strong advocacy to add nature, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So part of my responsibility was actually, one of the things that I had to assess in lifestyle medicine, it's about making small changes daily. So it's about, so I assessed myself. I was a mom with a newborn, so sleeping wasn't something that I could easily target and make changes to. But I certainly could make changes to the type of food I eat. So take note, I wasn't starving myself. I was eating, so lifestyle medicine will talk about a predominantly whole food, plant-based eating pattern. It's different from being a vegetarian. It doesn't mean that you don't eat it. It just means you are back in my grandmother's kitchen or my mother's kitchen where we did not eat meat every day of the week and we had predominantly plant-based. So balanced, but still balanced that I'll still have my starch, I'll still have my proteins, but mainly plant-based. But I would have, so in the induction phase, I concentrated mainly on that. In a week, in 7 days of that, my BP had gone down to consistently lower than 120 on 80. I was shocked. Initially when I attended the conference, I thought people were just saying and they were presenting papers. And when I went back to my doctor after 3 months, he came again and sat next to me and said, "What were you doing? What did you do?" So that I can tell the other patients. So let me talk a little bit about how do we see food. So it's about the power of perception, because perception often becomes our reality. And I often talk about the power of the tongue. So each time now I go shopping, in my trolley I'm thinking, is this life or death? When I buy my kids, when I pack the lunchbox, does this food lead to life or does it lead to death? I had to be that brutal with myself. So what's in that pantry, what's in that fridge? I didn't go around at lunchtime and look at what was on people's plates. But next time when we serve food tomorrow, you want to make it think like that. And just ask yourself, is the fork slowly digging the grave? So for me, one of the things that my mother was very strict about, the way we ate, you had to ask for food, you had to ask for mazoe. And I told myself, when I leave this household, I'll decorate my house with food and it will be, you know, what, however, many meats and things like that. Little did I know that that was going to be the problem that would lead me to be sitting across my doctor and having him change places. So what about just our perception of food such as lentils, nyemba, mtakura, even in our culture? We view those kind of foods as the food for those that are struggling, those that are poor, and that, you know, if the more affluent we become, then we should have, you know, beef stacks and all that all the time. There's nothing wrong with that, but it has to be in moderation and we have to know what exactly we're doing. We often joke around, you know, beans and so forth, commission. That was actually healthy. But our perception is that, you know, these kind of foods are not for the affluent people like the people who will become, as Dr. Abe has been saying. So I have put there a few tips. Ideally, everybody should have at least 5 portions of fruit a day, at least 5. Even if you just take apple, banana, you know, grapes, and 5 portions of fruit a day. It should be the bare minimum for everyone, and we'll find that that's usually cheaper than the fast food meals that we like to buy, and to avoid processed meats, particularly the processed ones. And I know that, you know, we think that when we're having breakfast with bacon and sausage and all that we are healthier, but actually this is slowly leading us to the grave, and making water the drink of choice. I'm not going to go deeply into this, but, you know, you might want to know one of the first randomized control trials, principal investigator Daniel, in Daniel chapter 1 and 2, he had a problem with the food. He made a proposal, said try us for 10 days, that was the pilot, and in 10 days they looked so much better than everybody else. So like, look, we're gonna do the randomized control trial. After the 3 years, they looked better than everybody else. They were 10 times wiser. What is it that they were eating? A predominantly plant-based eating pattern. So nothing new under the sun. And how do we apply that? Then I know that the society is full of runners. So when I would think exercise, I'll think, marathon, comrades, Dr. Matsir. And I'll just get exhausted. And when I was asked, the president would be like, and I'll be thinking, 5 kilometers, can I do that? But any movement is beneficial. Adults should aim for at least 150 minutes per week. That's 30 minutes daily of moderate to intense exercise. What is that? Moderate is when you can talk but you can't sing while you're doing the exercise. So for some of us that are busy mothers and all that, I do what I call functional exercise. If I'm going shopping, I'm going to park my car at distance and I'm going to brisk walk around St. Levy, brisk walk, go to village, brisk walk to that. I've done my 30 minutes for the day. So any movement is important, is essential. And then we go up there. But let's talk about relationships. We're being told about the networking. In Harvard is the longest ongoing study on social and people development. And Professor Robert Waldinger, who's a psychiatrist, actually gives a nice TED talk. You can look it up. It's called What Makes a Good Life. But basically what that proves is that the more satisfied we are in our relationship, the healthier we are. And I know that we are a busy lot, so sometimes we don't even have time with our families, but this is critical for our health. So, science is catching up with ancient truth. It is not good for men to live alone. We've always known that. So I want to tell this story, Crisis to Clarity. So after it's still a journey, by the way. I'm still walking the journey of living a healthy life. But a colleague that I hold daily and work with had a wake-up call. We were supposed to be doing business, some work, and on that morning they called me. They were not well. They ended up in the 24-hour emergency rooms. What was wrong? They were diagnosed with appendicitis. We were like, okay, appendicitis. They went to theater. Day 2, I was told, moved to HTU. And I'm thinking, what is going on? Basically, the sugars were up the, never been diagnosed before. The sugars were up the roof. The BP was up the roof. And they even had a little bit of cardiac failure. Had never before been diagnosed with any of that, but they had been drifting. Life changes had gone unchecked. They used to play soccer, they no longer did. They put on significant weight, and the breaking point was that ICU moment and the hospital stay. And so we had to have do one, see one, do one, teach one, right? So I became my physician, and we had the gentle talk about we need to do something about that. They took interventions. I wish I could show you the results, 3 months of the progress that they have actually made now, including their glycated hemoglobin. I've got the results with me here. I just don't have the time to share. But basically, that glycated hemoglobin has come down, and the BPs have consistently come down 120 on 80, lower than 120 on 80. They were put on something by their physician, but their physician is also absolutely gobsmacked by just the lifestyle changes that they made. They've had to buy a whole new wardrobe. And today they asked me to share their story, that that crisis became the point of clarity on that they needed to look after themselves. So what about lifestyle medicine in obstetrics and gynecology? So we know that a lot of our patients come in, polycystic ovary syndrome, fertility, obese, and we all know going with the patient to theater who is not well. We do need, and how many times have we said to the patient, lifestyle modification? But what is it? What is the patient supposed to do when we say lifestyle modification? Well, so here I am to tell you that there is actually a specialty, and you're free to send a consult my way. But this is actually a cross-cutting specialty. So any physician, we've got anesthetist, surgeons, physicians, anybody doing it, because it applies across the board. And integration into day-to-day practice. So the realigning of the clock sheet. Certainly, we need to start asking people, how well do you sleep? We need to start asking people, what do you eat, and put it in that clock sheet. I don't have time to talk about, I wanted to talk mainly about the food and the exercise, but this is just for us to remember, because I do know that we are a hyper-stressed kind of profession, but how do we respond to stress? Because that can also affect our health. We need to look at events that trigger us from various perspectives. But these are some of the things that we could actually do. Being outdoors is actually critical. I know most of us are either in our rooms or in theater, but we need to be intentional about at least spending 20 minutes outdoors. And then the avoidance of risk substances, I'm not going to go into that. Each of these pillars is a whole subject on its own. But maybe the challenge that I want to leave with us, because I know that this is difficult, how can we sleep better? Because the rules don't change for us. An adult requires at least 7 hours of sleep per night, children more. And I know we've got goals and how can we be innovative? Those partnerships and so forth, just for us to be able to stay healthy. Because what is it that will happen to our kids? So I know that we've done it for generations and we don't sleep and it's okay, but I think we need to start having these conversations. How can we partner and collaborate better so that we sleep better for our health and for the health of our patients? These are some of the things that impact our sleep, and I know that we do quite a bit of that, but these are some of the things that impact our sleep and our health. Finally, I want to just talk about this nature and health. So there is now talk to say that nature does increase productivity, it helps with stress, it even reduces your blood pressure and things like that. I think it's something that we know, but there's no evidence around it. And in fact, they are now collaborating with different people in different spheres with what we call biophilic designs. As in now people are saying, let's bring nature indoors if people can't go outside. So that's a picture of the Jewel Airport in Singapore, and those of us that are well-traveled would have seen that. But it doesn't have to be that elaborate. Just having some plants in your practice, just having paintings of plants and things like that. By the way, I've now taken that up, so if you need paintings and so forth, you can see me. I'm just applying what Abby has said. So, well, these are just some of my acknowledgements and references, but I just did want to share that story and encourage us that one of us incapacitated or one of us prematurely dead is one too many, and the nation cannot afford it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've given me something to think about. There was a year that I decided I had grown too big. I was not comfortable with me having bigger matamas. So I tried to get some gym equipment. Most of it is still sitting in boxes at my home. Then there was another year that I decided, let me get help and get a fitness trainer. It worked for a month. Then I decided, I can do this on my own. Never tried it again. So I think now I've got a new one that I'm going to try. If you notice I'm losing weight, I am not sick. And it will be because I am implementing what I have learned. So thank you very much, Dr. Jemeze, Dr. Makosa. Any questions for these two ladies?
Thank you, Dr. Makosa, for the presentation. Just a comment from you maybe on supplements. You know, post-COVID, everybody is now talking about all these supplements, nutrient additions, all sorts of additions to our diet. So in terms of wellness and just prevention of NCDs, and we are women of a certain age, what's your comment on supplements?
Thank you for that. So that's a whole topic on its own, but maybe let me just respond in principle form. So there is a whole a whole lot of talk on supplements, and because food and wellness has become such a big industry. So you have some of it that is genuine, and some of it is people just trying to make a quick buck. If you can get the food, if you can get the vitamin in your natural food that you eat every day, and you're saying how much, if I eat why I was saying you need 5 portions of fruit every day, you need you need to eat your nuts, you need to eat your plant-based protein. So they are, for example, so yeah, if you're mainly eating plants, you will need vitamin B12, but I would add a word of caution that there's a whole lot going on in that space, and it's a whole topic on its own, simply because it's a multi-billion dollar industry. So maybe we need to just go back and say, what was happening back then with our grandparents and things like that, that didn't even have these NCDs. We go back, I think Dr. Michael Gelfand has got studies that he actually published then Gomo, Salim Mugabe Hospital, where he was talking about the incidence of diabetes and hypertension at the net at Gomo, which was mainly taking care of net, he said, and compared to Parenyato. And there was hardly any of those things going on, even though people were not taking any of those extra things. But the more affluent we got, the more we started to see this rising. So I would say there needs to be a balance. There are people that would definitely need supplements because they've got something going on, or sometimes there are people that are vegetarian, not the plant-based, and those ones will need vitamin B12 supplements. But I would urge a word of caution to say, just go back to your biochemistry and so forth, and you see that most of these things we can actually take care of them. If food is medicine, so there's a whole topic called food as medicine as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentations, and mine are comments, not questions. And usually, after lunch, I tend to hear things. The physiological phenomenon that happens in my body, my blood is being channeled to the splenic plexus to help with digestion. So I don't know whether I heard correctly, Dr. Davidzoyashe, that you need partnerships to